Hello everyone and welcome back. Patrick here. Today we're going to be taking a look at rigging a skeleton in Blender and bringing that into the THREE.js environment, and then going over the code where we can actually control, edit, and manipulate our skeleton that we've brought in there. We're not actually going to be creating an animation in Blender. We're going to actually just be bringing in the skeletal model and then making all of our adjustments directly into the JavaScript. So without further ado, I'm going to open up a copy of Blender where we can create our rigged model. Now this portion, skeletons and such, is a little bit tricky in the sense that there's a lot of quirks about it. And I'm going to go over a few that I've kind of discovered as I was fiddling around with it. So why don't we go ahead and get started. Alright, so I'm going to just clear up the scene right quick, and we just need the cube in our scene for now. Okay, so we have our cube right here, and we'll go to orthographic view, side view, and we will just grab that object and bring that right up there. Actually, let's leave that right there. We'll go into edit mode and do it this way. Grab that object, bring that up. Okay, and we're just going to grab this and bring that up 4, 4, 4. Alright, so we have 8 total with that. And I'm going to go ahead and do Control R to do some edits, 3 of them right there. Hit escape right quick. Afterwards, we're going to go back into, so we have our cuts right there. And then after that, we're going to get out of here. Let's go back into tab. Alright, so with object mode selected, one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to come up over to Object and go to Clear. I'm just going to clear the location, and I'm going to clear the origin. Something about these files, you need to kind of clear all this information out when you're resetting it. If you bring it in, might not necessarily bring your skeletal rig into the correct placement. So by hitting that, I found that it actually loads it up in the correct placement. It was loading my rig down here earlier and the other piece up there, and it was kind of a little bit of a nightmare. Another thing I was having issues with was I was using an older version of the exporter, and it was really glitchy when it was coming down to actually exporting it. So I suggest always keeping up to date with the most recent exporter. I couldn't even figure out what was the bug that was going on. It would export sometimes and it wouldn't export other times. Alright, so let's go ahead and create an armature for ourselves. So we'll do single bone, and we'll come up over here, X-ray, and we will go back in there, grab Z, up, extrude, extrude, and extrude that up right there. Okay, I just realized I don't have my screencast keys on real quick. So the hotkey on that was E, and I'm just using tab to bounce between these two different modes. You can also find all of those buttons directly down here if you're curious for extruding or doing anything like that. Okay, so you'll see that any of the things that I've hit are all available right down there. All right, so let's get out of here, edit mode, and we're going to go back to our object right here, and let's go ahead and again just clear all this location stuff out, clear this origin. All right, so everything should be in the same location. I'm going to go in here just so you guys can see. I know it's a little bit late, but I'm going to do this anyways. Alright, so I have our screencast stuff on right now. Alright, so now I'm going to select the Shift Select Armature, then Shift Select Cube, Control P, other way around, Cube, Shift Select Armature, Control P, and we're going to do with automatic weights. And now, if you notice, if we go Tab, Control Tab, we can pose our model. Alright, so this is exactly what we're going to be trying to do. Whoop, 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 just like so. Okay, let's get out of there. Okay. So now let's go ahead and go to our JSON. Now I'm using a more up-to-date version on this, so it should be a little bit easier. I'm going to come up over to, we're going to call this one cylinder. Okay, you can see that this has changed up a little bit. We have operator presets. I'm just going to do vertices, faces, normals, and the UVs to disable that embed animation. We're not running a skeletal animation, but we are exporting the skeleton, so we need to turn on skinning and bones. Okay. And then that should be about it for these settings. We can go ahead and save those settings. Let's go ahead and export that. Alright, so that should have exported fine. Okay, let's see. Now I already have the code ready to go up over here, but let's just go and check to make sure that everything is working the way we want it to, and it is. Everything is in the correct place. Okay, so this is what this animation does. You'll see right here we have all of our helpers. They're all in the correct place, and we have a couple different things going on. We have our controls, and we have our bones that we can move like so. And you can see how everything is deforming according to it. Okay, so the next question is, how did we create this? Okay, let's go ahead and open up brackets, take a look. Okay, so just like we've done before, we've loaded up the JSON file right here, our callback for add model, and we've added some controls. Okay, our GUI controls, as we have discussed before with the .GUI interface, is basically bone 0, 1, 2, 3 is the name of it. And we are using Euler radians, which means that we're going from negative 3.14 to 3.14, which is the equivalent of 360 degrees. Okay, so we're just using a different method of calculating this. Okay, so these are our basic controls, and that is the distance between them. Okay, so what are we doing here? Okay, first thing we're doing is we're creating a couple arrays. We're creating an array to hold all of the different skinned objects, an array to hold the helpers, and we're also creating a scale value so we can get just different size scales and make things a little bit interesting. We'll just run a basic for loop that goes up to 800, and we're going to go through and make sure that all of the materials for each of these are set to true on the skinning. If you don't have this, nothing is going to work the way you want it to. Okay, so then we have our scale, which is basically going to give us a random scale set to the CS value, and that'll scale everything proportionally for each one. Okay, so goes through, creates a skinned mesh, and then it sets its position randomly within a 250 by 250 by 250 cube, sets the cast shadow and the receive shadow to true, and then it adds it to the scene according to its position. Okay, then we have our helper being added to scene as well, and now that you've seen that with it on, I'm going to disable it because it is rather loud and obnoxious. Okay, and then if you remember everything else, we're going to traverse our scene. We're going to look for the child that's an instance of a skinned mesh, and then once we find that child that's an instance of the skinned mesh, we are going to go through each and every one of those and allow us to adjust the rotation of the bones according to the controls that we specified right up here earlier. And then we're also going to update the skeleton helper. Okay, so it's very, very simple. We're just rotating right along the z-axis. Okay, and we're using our controls right in there. So this is the actual command to get into their skeleton bones right there, and that allows us to get in there and actually change the rotation on the XYZ axis or the pivot axis. Okay, so this is the most easy generic kind of look briefly into skinning in a skeletal system. I mean, essentially skinning is just a different type of mesh that basically takes the mesh face material and skins it along the bone system. Okay, just always make sure that you have this set to true and it will work fine. The one issue is always going to be the loader. It's a little bit tricky sometimes getting this guy to work properly. You're gonna have to kind of fiddle with it because it might not necessarily always load it, so make sure you always have the helper turned on, which will enable you to kind of see what's going on and why it wouldn't be loading properly. Anyways, I'll post all this code for you guys to take a look at. In the meantime, here you go. One final look, we'll refresh that, and you can see we have this awesome scene right here that you can fiddle around with. Okay. So I hope this gets you guys started with skinning and fiddling around with skinning. Thanks again for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.